Hey guys, welcome back to Enlightened Turtle. It's your host Kev here. I did say in that recent update video that I was going to be doing a video regarding the archaeology of the Trojan conflict. And that is a video I still plan to do. Now, if anybody wants to skip this introduction, I'll put the time now so you can just skip forward to the actual video. However, I'm going to just discuss briefly what I'm going to do over the next few videos. So, as I say, I was looking at doing a purely archaeological video, and that will come in the next couple of weeks, maybe the next month or so. As I say, unfortunately, I lost all the data that I had, so it's a case of going through all these books like Iman Wilkins, and got like your Lawrence Waddell's, like all these books and stuff like that. Got all these different things to go through again and start compiling the information, as well as doing some independent stuff and looking around and tying it all together. Now, I do have a video in the making. I've already started typing things up. However, I thought I'd try and tie in some other elements in a series of videos. Now, I've already typed up 2 videos, and this is going to be the first of probably maybe 5 or 6 in a series, where we start to tie in all things like this, like the astrotheology and all these different other elements that I've started to, as time's gone by since them Trojan videos that I did like a year or so ago. And like I say, it was all new information back then. I've started to learn more, to think more about different elements of the conflict itself and how it ties into maybe a bigger picture than just a simple conflict. Now, it's almost like the Bible, you know. I remember seeing one person state that the Bible has 7 layers, you know, like the 7 seals of Solomon or whatever, like the 7 chakras. There's 7 levels to understanding. And if you look into like books like this, like the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, which at some point I actually want to sit down and read the whole book, all tablets, and go through that, because that's something I've been reading and trying to understand for years and years. I don't listen to it every day, but every now and then I'll feel like the desire to go and, normally on an audiobook form, go and listen to the Emerald Tablets. But it's nice to have the hard copy, and I'm going to do a reading from there at some point. And like I say, you've got these different layers, these different levels, and once you start to look past the physical, then you start to get into the metaphysical, the spiritual, and all these different layers. And astrotheology and astrology is something I never really paid too much attention to. I always thought it was like hocus pocus, you know, new age, fanciful, you know, tarot cards, all this kind of stuff. I never really had much faith or believed in any of that kind of stuff. However, the more I've grown as an individual, learning from all these different researchers and stuff like that, I've started to almost question certain things. And the Trojan conflict is almost as an important document to the human, especially the Western element. Like I say, I can't really speak too much on Eastern mysticism and philosophy and history. I don't really know much about it. All I know is that you had the Ainu class, you know, over in Japan, which I had a documentary on the channel until I got told to take it down by YouTube, where you had like these elements of Indo-European culture, you may say, and then you go over into South America, you know, Quetzalcoatl, the serpent god. He arrived on a raft of serpents and started delivering information and agriculture and all this kind of stuff. So there's a lot that's been going on in my mind for a few years. And like I say, once I learnt about this Trojan stuff, that was almost like the catalyst for me then to say, well, actually, I want to take this a little bit more serious. I want to actually have more of a professional approach to trying to understand the meanings and the history and the lore of all these different concepts. Now, it's a slow journey. Excuse me, can I say a quick drink? You know, there's many steps in our own journey, never mind the 7 layers of understanding, and we've got to try and build our own picture as we're reading and understanding this information, because we get drawn to certain things that have meaning to us. And obviously I was in the military, so the war of the Trojan War, that was something that got my attention. As I mentioned in the past, the Mahabharata over in India, you know, the Great War there. These kind of things are what drew me towards trying to learn a little bit more. And I say, it's been over a year, it's been about 18 months now since I learned there was more than one Troy. And since then, it's been like a revolutionary period in my life where I've started to look back at things from when I was a bit younger, like the Kabbalion, you know, the Lament of Hermes, all these kind of things I was aware of when I was 19 to like 22. I was into all that kind of stuff, but I'd have headphones in, listen to audio books and things like that while going out for a run or walking the dogs or things like that. So I never really took it in, even though my mind was taking it in, like the subliminal elements of my mind. So it's nice, it's been refreshing having this little period off where I've actually sat down. I haven't done much thinking, to be honest, but the back of my mind, little moments when I'll see something and it'll make me think and reflect, has drawn me now into this trying to, I don't want to say fuse it into the Trojan War, but I'm starting to see things that I didn't see a year or two ago. Now, this is a long introduction, so I apologise for that, and we are going to get straight into the reading now. I will just say, like I say, it's going to be a chain of videos, and there's going to be little twists as we go through. It's not going to be linear because it's going to be a bigger picture by the time we get to the end, and I've got to put certain things in at certain moments as we discuss. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. So in this first video, we're going to take a look at Apollo. We're going to use Apollo here because he's a well-known god. He's a solar deity, and he was the most venerated god of the Trojans. Now, that could be significant as we go towards the end of this investigation, but right now, just remember that he was the most important god to the Trojans. He had Achilles, for example, was killed in the temple of Apollo. Now, could that be some kind of, was Achilles and Apollo, are these allegorical? Are these referenced, as I say, like Bible stories and things like that that reflect solar mechanics and emotions? I'm not too sure just yet, but these are ideas that we're going to try and look at moving forward. And here we go.
I'm conquering the spirit, I'm busting through the ceiling. I'm following your lead, I'm following the spirit.
Apollo was a powerful Greek god and one of the 12 Olympians. He served as the divine patron of prophecy, healing, art, and culture, as well as the embodiment of masculine beauty. Apollo belonged to the second generation of Olympians, along with his twin sister Artemis, goddess of the wild and hunting. He was commonly represented as Kouros, that is a young beardless male. That's in the Greek writing. And as I say, you've got the Titans, say Kronos, Olympians, say Zeus, and then below that you have their offspring such as Apollo, Artemis, etc. Apollo was the son of Zeus, the supreme god of the Greek pantheon, and Leto, a descendant of the Titans. In myth, he and his twin sister Artemis were born on the island of Delos, the only place on Earth that would give Leto shelter when Hera, Zeus's jealous wife, sought to prevent her from giving birth. Apollo was usually viewed as the prototypical beautiful young man, as I say, Kouros in Greek. He was distinguished by various symbols of his roles and powers. In ancient art, he could be seen carrying a lyra, the musical instrument, or a bow and arrow, and a cithara. He was often depicted wearing a laurel wreath, which I want to look into further in the future. Apollo's sacred animals included the raven and the wolf. He was widely worshipped with sanctuaries and festivals. And remember, Achilles was allegedly killed in the sanctuary of Apollo in one of the traditions. Apollo had a rich temple cult and was honoured with regular festivals throughout the Greek world, including the Pythian Games at Delphi. He was also worshipped in connection with aspects of everyday life, such as health and medicine. Ritual invocations called paeans were sung to Apollo in various contexts. In a recent archaeological discovery at San Casciano dei Baghini, upon the marble statue, in Tuscany, which is in Italy, experts stumbled upon a marble statue of Apollo Sorokotonos, I hope I've pronounced that right, also known as the Lizard Slayer. This finding occurred during excavations of an ancient Etruscan and Roman bathhouse. Now it's interesting that the lizard comes into this form of serpent, you know. The bath, powered by geothermal springs, provided the Etruscans with water of a comfortable 42 degrees at the Balneae Clusianae complex. And I put that in there because it's a nice little, I can just picture, you know, these Etruscans and Romans sitting around in a nice hot bathhouse. Must have been quite nice back in the day. Quite fond of a bath myself. Legend has it that Porsena, an Etruscan king of Chiusi, spelled Chiusi, founded the site. However, archaeologists lean towards the idea that the Etruscans built the complex much later in the 3rd century BC, in Roman times, which is kind of, doesn't make sense, does it? Obviously, this is the period, I think, of Roman kings rather than Roman emperors. The spa gained fame for its healing properties, drawing in important figures like Caesar Augustus, who visited regularly, as reported by Heritage Daily, which is where I got this information from. These fragments are Roman replicas of a bronze statue crafted by the famous Greek sculptor Praxiteles, who was a leading artist in Attica during the 4th century BC. In the Doridic Spartans and Macedonians video, which to be honest wasn't the best quality, I have to say, though I did watch it back, and I don't really watch many of my videos back. It's a bit weird watching yourself on film talking to a camera, like. However, I was pleasantly surprised with a lot of the information I put in that video, despite the low quality of the recording, as I used the computer, microphone and camera, which wasn't great. We see how Attica was the place then that went on to become Athens and was the last vestige of the Mycenaean culture. As we discussed in that video, the Dorians seem to come in and conquer that area, whether it be the Minoans on Crete or the Mycenaeans on mainland Greece. Plato recounts how the Athenians had lost their lineage and how they had repelled a force from Atlantis in their ancient past. This for me was the repelling potentially of the Doridic forces, as I say, as Doric forces come in, and we see it all around the archipelago and in mainland Greece, and we see Attica situated almost as a epicenter of this. Could the Dorians, well, we'll come into all this stuff in a minute. I will say as well though, like Herodotus makes reference of the Pelagians being the people who founded Athens, and he claims that the Pelagians changed all the names in the region. So could the Pelagians be a reference to this Doric Western influence as it came in? Typically made between the 1st and 2nd century AD, these copies of this statue show Apollo in his youthful form, ready to catch a lizard climbing a tree. And the lizard is, as I say, it's quite interesting that the Roman poet Martial even wrote a short poem or epigram about these statues, warning, and I quote, "Spare the lizard, treacherous boy, creeping toward you. It desires to perish by your hands." The sun and the serpent and the intertwined nature of the two is seen right through history, particularly in the astrotheological sense. And it's interesting, you know, we have Moses interacting with the serpent, and there's so many different elements that go along with serpent cult and almost what's the right word, taming of the serpent, if you will. However, this statue suffered damage in the early 5th century when the Christianization of the area allegedly resulted in the toppling of temples and statues into the basin, leading to the closure of the sanctuary. So this is something we're going to discuss as well moving forward. You know, the Christianization of a lot of the pagan belief structures and systems. So we can see here already the first target of the Christians of the Roman era was the local sources of this pagan belief systems. Straight away pulled the temples down, toppled them, put them in a basin, sealed, and only discovered in 2022. We're going to see a lot more discoveries like this moving forward, I should imagine, and we'll come on to that in the future. The hot springs and mineral waters of San Casciano de Bagni, my pronunciations are terrible, I apologize, were thought to have healing powers, believed to be bestowed by divine figures skilled in medicine such as Hygeia or Hygeia, a Greek goddess of health, Apollo, the Greek god of healing and ailment as mentioned, and Asclepius, the Greek god of health, and he's a god potentially of a lot more. We'll discuss him further in the future. He relates to the astrotheological sense, and you know, from Plato upwards and all this kind of stuff. There's a lot going on there. Those who bathed in the hot springs believed that they were directly connecting with the gods, seeking cures for various illnesses and conditions. The settlement of Troy was said to have many springs, as well as the potential location of Atlantis in Ireland. So hot springs seems to be a very nice place. A lot of cultures seem to build themselves around hot springs. Apulu, the Etruscan god associated with Apollo, holds a significant role in Etruscan mythology. Believed to reside in the sacred Mount Soracte, Apulu is often depicted with a wolf cap or an archer's bow and lyra. As part of the Etruscan pantheon, Apulu has close connections to the Oracle of Delphi, and some believe was to be considered as a foreign deity. Let's explore the origins and attributes and artistic representations of Apulu. Apulu had two notable siblings in the Etruscan religious framework. So now we're going to start to see how all these different pantheons almost kind of mimic one another. And we have touched on this in a video in the past where we laid out certain pantheons. sorry, just lost myself. Artemimi, which is a very close etymological rendering of Artemis, a prominent goddess, was closely associated with the hunt and often depicted alongside wolves. So she is depicted as the hunt, the goddess of the hunt, just like Artemis, the hunt and wild, and closely, where is it? She's depicted closely with wolves, which was an animal veneration of Apollo. So we're seeing the linkage right there. Fufluns, on the other hand, that's Fufluns, was the Etruscan equivalent of the god Dionysus, embodying the realm of wine and revelry. I wanted to put that in there because I love that word, revelry. Let's revel, let's have a party. Apulu is known as god of the sun and light, thunder and lightning. So we've got the sun and light, which is Apollo's has an association as a sun god, and yet when we have the thunder and lightning, we are talking Zeus here. So is that a connection through his father, offspring of Zeus? Who knows? Healing and plague. So he also has the same association to healing and ailment as Apollo does, as well as the protector of divination, a trend we shall see similar in likeness to Apollo. Here Apulu appears on a coin in a similar style to Apollo, and I'll put this image in. I'll put a few images in the video as usual. The oldest known representation of a solar deity in Greek culture is associated with Helios, the personification of the sun. Now this is where we see Helios is actually a different type of god to Apollo. One of the earliest depictions of Helios appears on geometric pottery from the 8th century BC. So the Greeks have a depiction of this solar deity in the 8th century BC, featuring scenes with chariots and horses that symbolize the sun's journey across the sky. As I say, we have a depiction of that in the early Celtic Europe. In Etruscan culture, Apulu, identified with the Greek god Apollo, also had these other solar attributes. The oldest representations of Apulu can be found on Etruscan artifacts and inscriptions dating back to the 8th century BCE, including pottery and bronze sculptures that depict him in ways similar to the Greek god Apollo, suggesting his role as this solar deity. As I say, not the solar deity, but an association to the sun. However, the oldest possible theorized date for the emergence of the Etruscans is some 400 years earlier and is around 1200 BC, corresponding to the end of the Bronze Age and the beginning of the Iron Age in Italy, or in the ballpark of what I've theorized as the Doric expansion east after the fall of Troy in Cambridgeshire. This period saw the development of the Villanovan culture, considered a precursor to the Etruscan civilization, characterized by advancements in metallurgy, structured settlements, art, and much more. Archaeological finds such as proto-Villanovan artifacts indicate the presence of the ancestors of the Etruscans during this time. Additionally, ancient literary sources and modern genetic studies suggest a complex origin involving both local developments and external influences, further supporting the early emergence of Etruscan culture around 1200 BC. Hey guys, sorry to interrupt the video. I've just realised that I made an error in recording that video. The mainstream will tell you that the genetic markers that have been found in this area vindicate what Herodotus has said regarding an expulsion from Lydia, where allegedly the peoples of Lydia were fleeing famine, and that's how you get the same genetic marker in Asia Minor and in Etruria. However, as I've been hypothesizing, if the transference of this DNA came all the way along, then we should find these markers not only in Etruria but also in Lydia, where the Dorians, in my eyes, landed, along with the archipelago and all these other areas. However, the sample pools are really small, and there's a number of factors that one should consider when deliberating over genetic markers, because there could be so many different reasons why the genetics changed in these different areas. It could be interbreeding, it could be long distance marriages and cultural exchange, it could be war, it could be migration. There's so many different factors that need to be taken into account. And me personally, I've mentioned this in the past, I don't attribute much credit to genetic study, to be honest, because a lot of the times it's the genetics will be used and manipulated, not the actual markers themselves, but the reasoning and the logic behind them will be used to vindicate a certain narrative, and it can be used to vindicate several different narratives at the same time, but it's obviously whatever the mainstream wants to push is whatever they go with. So I'm sorry, back to the video. So let me just elaborate on that. Sorry, wait there, I'll finish this paragraph. Which again also sees the Dorians having influence in nearby islands of the Mediterranean, including local Sicily and Sardinia. And this, as I say, goes all the way to the archipelagos around Crete and into Cyrene, Cyprus, and even in the Levant and southern Anatolia. That's all in that Doric video. The mainstream is convinced of a westward expansion on all things in Europe, and is sporadic with these dates. Hence why the material culture evidence is more profound, but that is not the focus of today. The point here is that Apulu and Apollo are one and the same. So I just want to touch back on there, because I didn't type this out, but it's something I should have done. When it says there we have this genetic influx that arrives in the area where the Etruscan civilization blossomed at around 1200 BC. This is the ballpark of the Trojan War. As I say, there's other dates. People want to go as low as the 7th century. Some people even push the dates back further. Some people think it's pure mythology. However, when we have the conflict in and around 1100 BCE, give or take, we see in Britain at this time an influx of genetic markers that come in from what we would call during, say, Caesar's time as the Belgae. These peoples, and into, like, say, northern France, Belgium, on the western coast, into southern Scandinavia, these genetic markers are found in Britain, arriving at this time, along with a platitude of archaeological discoveries. You know, as I say, we're going to come on to the archaeological segment. I've been saying this for a while, but we're going to do a really solid video. Like I say, I've got to rebuild the information back up because I lost it all, but it's going to be a solid video, that, and I'm really looking forward to it. So it's fascinating that we see in the same period, we see a genetic influx arrive into Etruria, the region where the Etruscans blossom. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that in there. As I say, the main focus there was Apulu and Apollo being like that, you know, really linked together. As the god of musica, or music, Apollo presides over all music, song, dance, and poetry. On the other hand, Apollo also encouraged the founding of new towns and establishments of civil constitution, which we see represented in these new colonies all over the place. As I say, we've got all these different colonies along the Mediterranean, into the Near East, Anatolia, Greece, the Levant even, and also around Britain, Ireland, Scandinavia, all these different representations of this kind of solar deity that is not specifically Helios or the sun, Ra, but more a solar attribution that has many other facets to his game, if you get my drift. And we'll have more on that in the future. And it's just interesting that, like I say, we've got these connections into Etruria, into southern Greece, and it all lines up with this date of the theorised Trojan conflict in Britain. So I'm probably going to leave it there. I really apologise if anyone could hear people flapping around outside. There's a construction site just over the back. They've been building a housing estate for like 2 years, and it's quite frustrating, to be honest, but there's nothing we can do about it. And someone decided halfway through recording this to pull a jet wash out and start doing one of their gardens. So if you heard it, I apologise. If you didn't, I apologise for apologising for nothing. But in the next video, we're going to continue on who these solar deity attribution gods were and keep building. Like I said, I don't want this video to be too long. I'm trying to keep them all to like 30 minutes. So yeah, I'm going to leave this one there, and it's good to be back. Hopefully this video wasn't too boring. It might take me a couple of videos to get back into the swing of things. But yeah, stick around, like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video. Peace.